David. How are you?
Oh, rolling along. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming to my show called Engineer Her Path. It's my weekly. Yeah. Oh, good. You got notified on LinkedIn also. So we are actually really live.
Yeah, I'm notified. Yep.
Yes. And the reason why I picked you is, of course, you're a fellow Ramsey financial coach. We know each other through that Ramsey Coach Network, and we kind of met through Enrichment, the financial coaches conference in August. We didn't have a whole lot of time to talk because, as you know, when there's over 300 people, you run into people and you're like, oh, we'll have a deeper, longer conversation later, and that
Well,
almost never happens.
yeah. Well, we didn't get to talk at all. I just kept seeing you. Like, oh, there goes Sandra. Oh, there goes Sandra. Oh, there goes Sandra. And that's why afterwards, we had that great meeting and got
Yeah,
off
we did.
Zoom and chat. I'm like, I saw you all over the place, Sandra, and you were talking to everybody, being all popular. And I
Oh no.
finally got you down.
You're super popular because you've been coaching for so long. But yeah, I think you're so interesting because you talk a lot about how you built a coaching practice part time, and that was very intentional. And I believe there are a lot of people in my audience, especially working women in STEM, who have a desire one day to build a business. And a lot of people just have these very demanding day jobs. Of course, they're balancing, parenthood and, being in a relationship or a marriage sometimes. And I thought you can relate and can tell us so much about it. But let's start off with, I'll let you introduce yourself to everyone.
Okay. Well, I'm David. I've been a financial and career coach for 6 years this past August. So maybe I'm working on 6.5 now. I have a 5-year-old. He's 5.5. So I'm going to join on the 5-year-old train. And my journey of doing it part time on purpose started when my family and I moved to Tennessee in 2019, and my wife and I we switched roles, and I ended up with my infant. He was only 2 or 3 months old at the time, and then an almost 2-year old, and we had we were on the third story of an apartment building in the middle of summer, and I had to take care of them. And then we moved from California to Tennessee. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna rebuild my business because I had it started in California. So now I'm started in Tennessee. And I'll never forget, my wife and I still laugh about this to this day, that she was about to go to work and I said, oh yeah, I'll be making as much as you in like 3 months. No big deal. And after the fifth consultation where I'm hiding from my children in the closet, I realized, oh, I can't actually work as much as I want to. They're my
Yeah.
top priority, and that's okay. And so I had to start figuring out how much I could work, what yeah I could actually do with the time that I had, how to be content with that. And that's really the beginning of the journey. And so I'm here today now. That was a long time ago, and now my youngest is off in kindergarten. So now I get to do this all the time and be on podcasts and talk about it. It's fun.
Oh, how cool. I did not know you used to live in California. What drove moving to Tennessee?
Oh, my wife got a job at Ramsey Solutions.
Yeah.
And that's what was funny is I wanted that job, and I tried a couple times, and it just wasn't happening. And she was like, "Do you mind if I try?" And that stinker tries once and gets a job.
Oh, isn't that the irony?
But it was completely meant to be because it became like so many of her dreams, and that's a tale. If you guys want to hear another one, the next time I come, if I get to visit again. But it was completely meant to be that she got that job, and I don't feel bad about it at all. And I've just been completely, happy that I got to build my business. And it was just like, oh, okay, I'll just work on my business.
Oh, how cool. And then what inspired you to get into financial and career coaching?
Okay, well, in the year of our Lord 2014, that's when my wife and I we were married, and we started our debt free journey. It took us about 3.5 years to get out of debt. And the theme of my life has always been I want to help people. And so, I mean, actually, my degree's in criminal justice because I thought I wanted to be a cop. And then I've worked as a manager of a library, and I've done all these things, but the theme is helping people. And then
Yeah.
around I think the end of 2017, I was, in a situation where I just my wife and I, we had gotten out of debt that year in the middle of the year of 2017. And during that summer, I must have had 50 conversations that kept ending in people crying and saying thank you because I'm just sharing what my wife and I did to get out of debt. And so I was like, oh, how do you monetize this? How do you
Mm.
do this? Because this is actually helping people. And the internet must have been listening because I started getting, FCMT things like, oh, financial coach master training. And I was
Mhm.
like, oh, okay, I'll do that. And so I went through the training, started my business in August of 2018, and the rest is history.
Wow, how interesting. I did not know that you studied criminal justice. I'm sorry, I could not imagine you as a cop. You're too jolly.
I would have been a great,
Well, from the helping perspective, yes, and talking to people, but
a lot of people have the exact same reaction, so you're not alone, Sandra.
yeah, that was probably a good career pivot.
But during my time at the library, I was upper management, so I did the hiring and all that, did interviewing
Mhm.
and all those types of things. That's where the career came into it, as well as when, and this as a financial coach, well, where does the money come from? I end up doing career coaching all the time anyway, because my
Yeah.
clients need help with those things, and I have experience with those things, so I've just been doing it, and it's awesome, and it's so much fun, and it's great to help them, make that shovel a little bit bigger, as well as teaching them how to manage it better.
Yeah, yeah. So, how did you get started with your business? I mean, it sounds like maybe naturally a lot of people are already coming to you anyways and having those types of conversations. But how did you decide to like formally start a business, and what did you do?
Yeah. Well, it just seemed to me to be the best option at the time. I'd already had my certification, and here I am
Mhm.
in Tennessee with two little fellas. So it was something that was just natural, like, okay, well, we want either me or my wife to grow them up during this period of time. We don't want to pay a bunch of money for someone else to do it. That was just our decision at the time, and it was something that I could make my own schedule. And what I did, nap times, evenings, and weekends. And I'll tell you, it takes work. All you
Yeah.
moms out there, it takes work. But I got them on the exact same nap time schedule from 1 to 4 o'clock every single day. I got
Wow.
the same schedule, and there would be times where I'd lay them down and like hug them, kiss them, and then run into an appointment, hoping that they're not gonna yell. And every once in a while, I would have to go back in there, but in general, I was able. And what was cool is, if and all those parents out there, if you're consistent enough, automatically the kids' bodies just start getting sleepy around that time. As long as I'm consistent, they'll be
Yes.
consistent, and it works out.
Yeah. You train them.
Yeah, but
Okay.
you have to be like I'm crazy. Like my wife would tell you, I'm crazy consistent because I knew that, and I just kept them on the same snack schedule, like nothing ever wavered. Like I was 9:30 snack, 11:30 lunch, 1 o'clock in bed.
Wow.
Because
Wow.
that was the only way I could see of having any sort of consistency in the business as I'm trying to build it.
Yeah, yeah. So that's interesting because when you're building a business, sometimes, especially in the beginning, when some people feel a little bit desperate, they kind of want to serve anybody, everybody. They want to bend over backwards a little bit, be very accommodating. So, how did you deal with that, or learn how to set boundaries?
Yeah. Well, what there were two fronts, on the boundary setting, and it always made me laugh because there'd be a lot of new coaches that kind of share, oh, I kind of had a hard time making calls and stuff today. And for me, I had no time to be nervous. There's no time. I had such little time that I would just go into these situations, just I have to go because they're going to get up. The boys are going to get up.
Oh, I love that.
So I was always just very aware that I had no time. And what's interesting is now that I have more time because they're both in school, I'm
Yes.
really trying to make sure that I'm holding on to that spunkiness that I had to have during those years because it's
Yeah.
such a good thing. and you can waste so much time when you have too much of it.
Yes.
So it really taught me that I had to have boundaries to be a good dad, to be a good husband, to make sure the house is clean. I'm cleaning the house. I'm making dinner, Sandra. I'm doing all this stuff, as well as running the business. I mean, there would be times where I would work on the business during nap time, go
Mhm.
make dinner, and then I have another call in the evening. And so, to break it down, what I did was have honest conversations with my wife of what can I do? What can't I do? Keeping that pulse on it. Sometimes we would have another talk. You're having a little too many evening sessions. Let's make sure we're saying goodnight to the kids.
Mm.
So it's really prioritizing that. For me, it's God, then family, then friends, then work. So
Wow.
I would work through those things, but then you work on the contentment piece. I'm seeing coaches with more time doing all this cool stuff. It's like, oh man, Sandra's so cool over there. She's got this podcast.
No.
I have no time to do that podcast. I want to do that. But at the same time, there'd be those moments that I would totally struggle with from time to time where it's like,
Yes.
I'm looking at my friends doing more than I am and I want to do it. I can't wait for David Gibbs to get out there. But at the exact same time, it was also freeing to be able to and love the word no. For a time,
Yeah.
I started a book club. I led a book club myself. I carved out some time for it because I found that for me to actually learn, I need to spend time on it, have people to, give feedback, where my friends and I would talk about each chapter and even just share how we did it, used it in our lives. But everybody at the end, okay, when's the next one? I'm like, I'm only doing this once a year because that's all I can handle. you know
Oh,
and I would say that for everybody, having good boundaries when it comes to, because I've seen that a lot with coaches I've ran into recently, where
yes.
you can literally fill your entire day with every single Facebook group you're in, and
Oh,
and
yes.
so
Yes.
what I had to learn, and what I've tried to hold on to, and I want to share that with anybody, no matter what situation you're in, be spunky, have your priorities set, and protect your time. If you need to
Yeah.
be prospecting, stop going into every single group. Stop living on social media because that's not making you any money. you
Right,
know?
right. I
And,
know, I know. And I tell people that too, because I'm like, if you're going to be on social media, start having conversations with people, like start having conversations. It's like, stop scrolling. I mean, if some people are attracted to you because you posted, cool, but you got to make the most of your time. So how did you kind of learn what are the most value added activities, and kind of like, I guess part of it was you're saying you have this forced urgency. You don't have time to sit there and ruminate and just like, should I or should I not? It's just like you got to do stuff. But what else helped you kind of figure out what were the useful activities that brought you the most
yeah,
productivity?
bumping my head against the wall.
At least it's honest answer.
There were times where I would try things.
Yes.
I'm like, oh, maybe I can spend some time on social media, like setting up my Instagram and all this stuff, and then I would end up, at the end of week one, exhausted, barely any followers, no new clients, and truly, going back to what worked for me, and it could be different for other people, but what
Right.
worked for me is prospecting and building referral networks. Having
Mm.
those referral partners was my number one business grower during that period of time because that's all I had time for. Build those relationships. For me, with my referral network, I always feel like a story is better than a statistic. So I'm giving some secrets here for all those folks out there. Is that when I would connect with them, I'd offer them a free session so that they have that experience with me. And then I
Mhm.
keep up with all of my referral network every 3 months. Every quarter, I meet with every single one of them to see how the kids are, how's life going. I
Oh,
really
that's
try and
really good.
bring them a part of the mission.
Yeah.
And so those two things, that's what I had time for, and whittling down that's what was best for me. And yeah, for a time I had a book club once a year, but then I stopped because I was like, oh, even that's too tiring, because
It
with both
is.
of my boys, I did at home preschool with both of them. I put them through, and I'm very excited to say that my kindergartner, he had his first report card and he's above grade level on everything. That's the
Wow.
good dad.
Oh, that's amazing. It just seems like, yeah, you're so organized and disciplined in everything in life. And I think you're right. When you don't have all this extra time, it really forces you to evaluate what's valuable, what's productive, what's fruitful. Because same like you're saying, the social media thing, and I tell people this too. Either you kind of go all in or you don't do it at all. It's
Uh-huh.
kind of hard to be halfway in and dabble, and then people don't seem to really like, for instance, your wife that's into graphic design, she'd be perfect on Instagram. She'd probably love, she could whip out all types of graphics and pictures.
Oh
But
yeah.
for I don't know if you're creatively challenged. I kind of am, so it would be a struggle. It'd be so hard and painful for me, right?
Actually, my wife is Kelly Gibbs Creative. She's on Instagram and she does really good. And I'm always just jealous of her all the time because she's doing all this amazing stuff. And I'm just like, I'll go on there and say, hey, do your budget. I've gotten better though. I've gotten better.
Yeah, yeah, but it's kind of like forcing yourself to do these things that maybe you're not so good at, and then they're not really fruitful. So then it's why bother? And then
Well, that's
I'm just like you.
yeah, that's fantastic that you say it because what I love is that I learned it out of necessity, but now I'm holding on to those things of okay,
Yeah,
evaluating what I'm doing with my time. It's like, do I enjoy doing this? Am I good at this? I mean, of course, we can all learn, but having the joy of doing, and I think it goes back to there is more than one way to build a business. You don't have to do it
yes, there are
with
so many different ways. Yes.
right, yeah,
And then I totally agree with you about the joy part, because there are people that are forcing themselves to maybe post on LinkedIn every day, and you can tell there's no joy in their posts. They're having no fun.
yeah.
And it's just, people can feel that, and it's just, if you're not having fun, you're not learning, you're not, optimizing. And then some people, they just respond by volume. I just do more and more and more of this. It's like, well, that's not really working either, right? Because you're not really getting better or innovating or learning from what you're doing. So I think that's super smart. I bet that really helps a lot with when you're coaching clients, because you hear it from a lot of people where people will say, oh, I don't have time to look at my budget, I don't have time to review my spending. But I mean, you probably can always answer all those challenges, right?
Well, what's kind of funny, and my wife and I, we've been married for 10 years. She's still working on me with this, where I'm just like, in my mind, I used to get up, and by the way, besides coaching, I had a part-time job at the YMCA during the past 5 years as well. So
Wow.
I would get up in the morning, and there would be times where I'm like, oh, I have to do some work for coaching stuff, right? So I'd
Yeah.
get up like 5 in the morning, do some work. Okay, get the boys up, make sure they're ready, kiss the wife, go to the YMCA with the boys because it was cool. I worked in the children's area, and they would come with me. And then okay, now I got to get home, get them lunch, go to bed. Okay, back to work for coaching stuff. All right, that's done. All right, they're done. Okay, now they're up, making sure they're alive. Do our preschool program with them, and then I'm making dinner, and then okay, bath time. Okay, time to put them to bed. So in my mind, during all that period of time, guess what I was doing? Doing my budget, doing the groceries, doing everything I
Yep.
was supposed to do. And if you have your priorities right, cut the crap and do it. Just do it. Just because you don't want to do it, that doesn't mean you don't have time. Because we all have 24 hours in a day, and
Yeah.
you just have to prioritize getting off the phone and doing some work. And see,
Yeah.
that's where I'm like, where my wife pokes at me, you got to have empathy. I'm like, they're on their phone. Of course they are.
You should just give them a rundown of what a typical day for you is like.
I know. Well, but what's funny is, to not be prideful. Of course, I had my off days. I got tired. There were times when the boys took a nap, I took a nap too. Like
Yeah.
I am a human being. I promise. And there were times when I didn't get stuff done, and there were times over the years where like, oh my gosh, I had a scheduled client, and then I'll like jump on like right after like having a short cat nap because I'm just tired from being up 3 times the night before, me and my wife with a sick kid, like
Hmm.
all those things happen too. But at
Oh,
the end of the
yeah.
day, if you want something bad enough, and this is where I think is the core for all of us, if you have that strong reason why, if it's strong enough, you'll get the job done.
Oh, I truly believe that. I truly believe that. And I know people, they talk a lot about balance and this and that, but um, the way I got my finances in order was like, I focused on them a lot for a while, for
Yeah.
quite a while. And I still do to a certain extent, maybe less. But when I was learning all that stuff, it was a lot of focus. And I think sometimes people think like, well, that's so unbalanced. And it's like, well, to achieve something big and great in life, right? You kind of had to focus for a while.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh man, like going back to, just budgeting for an example, when my wife and I first started budgeting, when we first got married, it was an hour-long pursuit. Now it's like 15, 20 minutes. It's like, once
yeah,
you get good at something and you're in the zone with whatever you're doing, you figure it out and then you're in the zone and you got it.
yeah, yeah. That's so interesting. And then over the years, how do you see it maybe shifting like balance or priorities? I mean, you already mentioned a big milestone is the boys are in school, right? So that's freed up some more time.
Yeah. Well, guess what happened, Sandra?
What?
I, as soon as they went to school, I was like, I'm free. I can do everything. So I started like I'm getting on all these podcasts, and I'm like I'm here. I'm starting to write a book. I'm doing all this stuff, right? And
Yeah.
then like a month in, it's like, oh, I don't have as many clients as I used to have. What? How much am I prospecting? Because I'm doing like all this stuff, and I really had to literally talk to the David of old and say, hey man, you're spending all this time. I'm in groups more. I'm on Facebook. I'm doing and I'm
Yeah.
doing everything that I'm saying I shouldn't do. Everything I've told you guys so far, I was
Yeah.
doing because I was like, oh, I've got the time. And
Mhm.
so yeah, so I had to even myself, with that, I had already that quick lost that fire under my butt. Like it was I was excited to have more time, but I got a little too excited. And
Yeah.
so yeah, so I had to think about that. I had to think about my priorities at a business and refocus on the bottom line first and then do those other priorities once that's covered. So I mean, it can happen to any of us no matter what where, oh, I keep saying yes to certain things, but is that actually saying yes to my business overall?
Yeah. I don't think you lost your fire. I don't think you lost your energy. You're like, you just went nuts. You were maybe a little overly zealous. And
Yeah.
I know what you're saying because you're like, I can do this and this and this and this. And you sign up for everything. And
Yeah.
then you kind of find out, well, you're not doing anything. So great. And then you're like, where's the new clients? And where's,
Well,
who
because
am
I
I
wasn't
serving?
prospecting as much as I used to be, because I'm doing all this other stuff. I'm like, oh, the clients will be there because I thought I was all hip. I'm like, I got my new website, I'm all full time now. The clients will just come. They still come one conversation at a time. No matter,
Oh, I love that.
how cool you look, they still come one conversation at a time.
What do you think is better, focusing on the existing clients you have? Because I hear like this debate, right? Or acquiring new clients.
Hmm. I feel like, in my mind, I want my clients to be my clients forever. I want their children, I want their grandchildren, I want their great grandchildren, you know? And so I have a very like I actually have a list like legacy clients of folks that I've had a really good experience with, that we've had a good time with. And there are quite a few where I meet once a quarter. I have a client that I just met in October. We meet once a year just to check up, to check under the hood, to see how
Wow.
things are going. And because there's always something to talk about, there's always something going on. There's always a mindset, shift that we need to
Mhm.
have. There are conversations as you go through, for Ramsey, all of the baby steps. When you're in baby step 7, all right, let's talk about, all the cool places you want to give to and how you want to organize your giving. You know what I mean? Like in
Mhm.
my mind, I can't wait to talk about that stuff. So it's just kind of, if you work in the land of, oh, you're graduated, I'll see you around. That's no fun. I want to talk about the fun stuff.
Oh, how fun. You really believe in
So,
maintaining this relationship with all them.
so I always, but I'll tell you, it's only the best ones that have done really good that we have a good
Oh, right. Okay.
relationship with,
Yeah.
because some of them we don't, some of them we don't, some of them are like, I can't wait to not pay this guy anymore. But that's okay. We've done the best we could. I challenged them. Maybe they don't want to be challenged. You know how it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I would say, equal love and support for both, because once you're a client of David Gibbs, I want to be there for you to help you along the way.
Okay. I love that answer. I love that answer because I see it going back and forth with people. And it's just like, I don't know which one's right because I feel like you should take care of your current clients, of course, but then you always have, like you're talking about, you can't stop prospecting. You
Yeah.
can't stop trying to get new clients.
Well,
Yeah.
and like I said earlier, a story is better than a statistic. So my clients that I already had that have had a great time, they're like the best seeds of creating new
Yes.
anyway, because
Yeah.
they're like, oh my gosh, David did this in our lives, and I'm gonna plaster it around the world. So of course I'm gonna love on them.
Okay. What's your favorite or ideal type of client?
Oh, interesting. People keep bothering me with this question.
No, give me your favorite. You don't have to
No,
down
I
select to a niche
know.
client or ideal
That's
client.
always been, the big question for us coaches to find
Yeah.
out, right? Uh,
Well, you've been doing it a while, so you probably have quite the few to.
what I think the best answer to it is someone who is the most like me, in their mid-30s,
Yeah.
married with kids, because we have a ton in common starting out, and we're really on the same page, even generational. They'll get all of my millennial jokes. And I'm sorry, I think my wife is listening. Millennial. Because I say millennial for some reason, and she gives me a hard time.
Oh, that's hilarious.
She always makes fun of me, millennial. I'm like, yeah, I'm a millennial. But just for the fact of, we have more in common, and I can use an example from Boy Meets World, for their finances, and they'll get it. So
Yeah.
that I would say that's the ideal client.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with that answer because I think most people, what it is it's a version of themselves
Uh-huh, yeah,
that they
that's a
really like serving the most because there's something about them they see themselves in that version. It's like,
yeah.
oh, if I only had someone back then to help me out, right, with my
Well,
finances.
that's great that you bring that up. It's interesting. When I first came to Tennessee, my first Tennessee client, this was really interesting. He was making the same amount of money that I was when I was in debt. He had the same amount of debt that I had when I started, and it took me 3.5 years with him, with the help of a coach. So remember this, folks. We did it in less than a year.
No way. And I bet when you started working with him, he could not see that himself.
Oh yeah, no. And I think I just saw a study that, when you have accountability, you are 95% more likely to reach your goals. So no matter
Oh,
what, whether you have
absolutely.
a coach or a friend, have accountability, and you're going to go further.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever read Gretchen Rubin's Four Tendencies book.
Ooh, I have not.
It's really simple. It's
But
like just four personality types, but
yeah,
the gist is the biggest personality type are called obligers. It's not bad to be an obliger. So that's most people in America, but obligers love external accountability. So they're the people they when they make a promise to someone or they make a bet with a friend, they actually come. It's funny because I'm not an obliger. I'm very like an internal account. I'm a questioner, which means I question everything and I can only do something if I feel very internally motivated. But it makes a nice world when we have a lot of obligers anyways. It's not a bad thing, but they're the people that like they really respond to coaching. They like, perhaps military life, they like academia, they understand like how to be in a corporate environment. So it's just interesting because yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, as we're wrapping up, I want to give you a chance to let everyone know where you're at, how they can find you. Do you have anything to offer anyone?
Yeah, I don't have anything to offer. No, I'm just
I know you do.
kidding. So you can find me on Facebook, Instagram. Look up Coach David. And and right now, actually, just wanted to throw this out. Today is Veterans Day, so one thing that I'm doing right now is, if you are a veteran, your first session with me, if you become a client, I'm taking off 150. So
Wow, that is very generous.
yeah, and I'd love to, offer that to any veterans out there, because, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And,
Yeah.
and especially with, we need to care for them so much. And I want to be a part of that. Let's get that money stress down.
Yeah, and I've seen you being kind of active on Facebook. Is that where you like
Yes,
to
yes,
be more
yes.
active for
You
social
can follow
media?
you can follow me on Facebook, Coach David, as well. Facebook, Instagram, and then yeah, then you can connect with me on there. I'd love to chat with anybody and encourage you. I love encouraging new folks and helping any way that I can.
Okay. Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for this conversation.
Yeah, so much fun.
Okay.